There's this great quotation from the science fiction writer Arthur C. Clarke, which 2bsirius reminded me of in one of her videos, which is that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And 2bsirius followed that up with a quotation from Michael Shermer, or a reference to Michael Shermer, where he says something about any sufficiently advanced extraterrestrial civilization is indistinguishable from God, which is, again, is a great quotation. And what it's reminded me of, I've been trying to find a way to think about this really recently, and this has provided a useful way in, I think, is to do with what happens to the idea of the supernatural when you embrace methodological naturalism, or when you embrace the scientific method more broadly, or some kind of positivist approach to knowledge, or just the idea that knowledge is something you can accumulate and really get that in your head. Because one of the things that I found, and it's not just a personal experience, this is the idea of it really, is that once you've got the idea of accumulating knowledge and and naturalistic explanations, then effectively the supernatural, the category of the supernatural, pretty much has to disappear. And this isn't just a God of the Gaps argument. I think this is something more wide, a more wide definition of how epistemology works and how knowledge works, I think. Because if you're the methodological naturalist, and I think this also came up in response to Veritas 48's questions about, what would you do if you saw God? And because my first response to that was, if I die and I meet God, because I have no category of the supernatural, my response is that I am meeting an unusual phenomenon for the first time. It might be a very difficult phenomenon to get my head around. It might be an impossible phenomenon to get my head around. But at no point does it flip over into the idea of the supernatural, because the supernatural as a category just doesn't exist. There is the known, and there is the unknown. And of course the unknown is vast, and large parts of the unknown will probably never be known. And some aspects of the unknown will probably be so unknowable that we'll never even know that we don't know them, or know how to approach knowing them. That's perfectly possible, but that doesn't become supernatural at that point. It may even be that some parts of the unknown, there are facts out there is information and knowledge out there. It may be that the universe works in a way which is so unknowable and so strange that it destabilizes everything that we do know. It might be that if it did become possible for us to know certain facts, we would discover at that point that everything that we know right now is completely wrong. We might discover that. But that doesn't alter the basic fact that you're operating in a completely different paradigm. You're not operating in a paradigm in which there is this world of experience that we live in, and then there's this other stuff called the supernatural. That paradigm is broken. Once you get the scientific method and methodological naturalism, that is broken forever. And it's replaced by the known and this great sea of the unknown, which we are occasionally voyaging out into. So I suppose just to return to that quotation from Arthur C. Clarke, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. The converse of that is any magic, any god, is indistinguishable from some kind of advanced technology, some kind of advanced knowledge. And that's the approach to all aspects of the mysterious, all aspects of the unknown and the strange, or at least for me, and I would hope for most people who would adopt something like the scientific method, that would be the approach to take. It doesn't dismantle felt responses. It doesn't stop all those emotional relationships we have to knowledge, and those kind of moral responsibilities we have for knowledge. It doesn't do any of those things. That stays in place. It just, as I say, removes the category of the supernatural. In fact, I would say, if anything, those emotional, moral, experiential categories and ways of experiencing are probably greater in many ways if you are operating in a paradigm where it's the natural and then the supernatural, basically it's a fairly straightforward script that you're operating within. And your position within that is very stable and unchanging. Whereas I think if you're operating on this hugely expansive and hugely dynamic system, whereas you're pushing at the edge of the known the whole time, and occasionally making mistakes and flipping backwards and forwards across the boundaries of the known, and trying to speculate about what lies beyond the horizon of your knowledge, then I think you're in a much more viable position for genuine experiences of the sublime, if you like, or the just the gobsmackingly fantastic. Yeah, I hope that makes a kind of sense. Yeah, supernatural, it's a lazy way of saying stuff you don't know, and saying you're kind of embracing the unknown as a place to try to go to is much more exciting and I think much more honest.